Hey guys, Nicque Marina here. I am here to do my review of the movie Soul. A lot of my followers have been waiting for this and been talking about this for a long time and are really eager to know my thoughts on this. For a lot of obvious reasons. I will say there's a lot of layers as to how I feel about this movie. As you guys know, I'm a big Disney fan. I'm a big Pixar fan, and Pixar has always been able to make movies that are tearjerkers and make us feel a lot of shit. And so I'm going to break this up into basically two parts. I want to talk about everything that I absolutely loved about the movie Soul, because it's definitely come a long way as far as the depiction of Black people in animation. Thinking about Princess and the Frog, and honestly, what a trash fire that was, at least in my opinion. And because I do think it's come a very long way. At the same time, I do want to talk about some of the ways that it could have been better, and I want to talk about some tropes that the movie fell into, that the writers fell into, and I think it's very important to offer this criticism, especially in this day and age, especially in 2020, when we are talking about, the way Black people are portrayed in entertainment, in media, especially in media. It's because I am an actress and I am, an entertainer, and so I want to talk about this like in that vein. But I do think it's important to offer as much, very, very deep, nitty-gritty criticism as possible, because unless we do, we're never going to move forward, and we're not going to get out of these tropes. So I think this is necessary for the entertainment industry to be better, one movie at a time. So let's start with the things that I really love the most. Now, almost every Pixar or computer animated Disney movie, honestly, if you notice, is an excuse for Disney to flex on how far their animation has come. And Disney animation pretty much shits on everybody. But every movie is kind of an example to show how far their animation has come and how well they can do it. For instance, The Incredibles, Violet's hair was the big thing because nobody had animated hair, computer and like CGI hair like that before, and they animated every single strand to get the hair as realistic as possible. Like, that was their big animation flex, and it took most of the time producing the movie to do Violet's hair. For Moana, which is not a Pixar movie, but like water, the animation of the water was the big thing for Moana. No one had ever animated water that well before, and then they had to give the ocean like a personality and everything, and so that was their big flex. I don't know. And Inside Out was also a big flex because there's like just a lot of like really cool abstract animation, and there was a lot of that in Soul, and so I really, really love that. And so every Pixar movie, I'm always looking forward to seeing what are they doing new with animation, and like how is technology progressing in that way. And not just the technological like trippiness of the animation, that was really cool, but the way that they animated the Black people in this movie was so beautiful. They just look glorious. There was a multitude of just different kinds of Black people, and different shades, different body types. Everybody looked like they were rubbed down with cocoa butter. They were just glistening. It was very, very beautiful. Honestly, most of the animated characters that show up on screen are either Black people or just people of color, and a lot of them have accents, not just accent like African American, but also Hispanic and stuff like that. I really, really loved that. And it took place in New York City, which is a very diverse city, and so it was really nice to not just see fucking white people in New York City. And it was very nice to see Black people, pretty much just Black people, animated throughout this movie. Sorry about all of this goddamn noise. It was really nice, and it was a very, very good representation. Finally being able to see ourselves on screen in a future Disney movie. see us the entire time being black. The voice lineup was really, really cool. We have Jamie Foxx, we have Tina Fey, we have Questlove, we have Daveed Diggs, we had Angela Bassett, and some others that I can't name at the moment right now, but honestly, it was a really impressive voice lineup. I really, really loved it. I know that, as I understand it, Daveed Diggs and Questlove were actually cultural consultants for this movie for Disney, and it definitely shows, because there's a lot of elements of black culture that were included into this movie, including, like, you know, barbershops and jazz, and of course the entire movie centered around jazz, and that hits home for me because I am actually a jazz musician. That's how I came up mostly in music. I'm a classically trained jazz clarinetist, and it's a big part of me coming up and learning about my own culture being black. You know, playing a lot of gigs when I was very, very young in Houston for some pretty influential people. This will, you know, pat on the back for me, but you know, it was very nostalgic for me, and I really liked that. I liked that it went into jazz, and I liked that it was jazz and it was a movie about black people. I have still never really gotten over La La Land, which I think, I mean, is probably like a pretty movie, but I think it's completely bullshit that it was a movie about jazz in which the two protagonists were fucking white people. That's, you know, just another, that was just another example of how, like, we can't even own the things that we have invented ourselves. Which is one of the reasons I do not fuck with La La Land. I think it's dumb. I don't hate Emma Stone or Ryan Gosling by any means, but I hate that movie for that reason. And so I really enjoy that it was a movie about jazz full of black people, because that is our art form, and I love that. They even made some little comments about what it's like to be black in America. Very small, because it is a kid's movie, but you have to be grown up to get it, I think, because at some point Joe Gardner is like trying to hail a cab, and he's in a nightgown because he's escaping from the hospital because he has to go make his gig, and he's trying to hail a cab, and he's like, oh, this would be hard even if I weren't just like in a nightgown or not wearing pants. And I had to play that back a few times in my head, because I was like, oh my god, did they really talk about like how like it's hard to hail a fucking cab in New York City when you are black, specifically a black man? Like, whoa, they really went there. I was like, that's interesting. Okay, they threw that out there. Obviously didn't go deep into that, but I was like, interesting little tidbit there, I want to say. But overall, like, the entire message was honestly very uplifting and very, very sweet, you know. And the overall message was basically like, you don't need some profound purpose, or you don't need some profound gift, or to be exceptional to be worthy of living life. You know, your purpose of living life can be just to exist and just to enjoy the world as it is, you know, and just, you know, indulge in things like food and companies, you know, socializing in family, in music, in nature, and just walking around, just experiencing the world around you. That can be your only purpose, and that's completely okay. I think it's very timely, especially for people like me, who I'm just like, you know, who, especially like overachieving black people like myself, who have been trained to be the exceptional Negro, that have had this feeling all of our lives that we have to have this something special about us for us to deserve to live. Because in this day and age, it feels like unless you're a brain surgeon, a doctor that's like curing cancer, unless you're like a pop star, unless you're a star athlete, unless you're inventing something, unless you are like even a military member, which is something I've experienced, like no one really cares about you, and your life is not really worth anything in this society unless you're an exceptional Negro. And a lot of us have this pressure to become an exceptional Negro because we feel like it's the only way that we can deserve life on this planet. I definitely have struggled with that. I still struggle with that, being now a disabled veteran who can't do much of anything besides content create from my home. So it was a very, very timely message for me. You know, basically that you don't need to have all this special stuff about you to deserve to exist. You can just be, and that's enough. And I think that's very timely for a lot of people, especially people that are struggling, like I said, with depression and anxiety, PTSD, like myself. Maybe those who are thinking about taking their lives or having those dark thoughts. I think it's a very timely message for those people. I really like the way that they animated and portrayed like this concept of lost souls, in which, when something that you love becomes an obsession and it detaches you from reality, then your soul becomes lost and bitter and like I said, detached from your body and detached from reality. And I was like, whoa, that's really disrespectful because that's exactly how it feels. Like, that is exactly how it feels, and it's definitely something that I'm going through, if you know the drama with TikTok right now. So like I said, it was a very, very timely message, and I very much appreciate it. So with that, those are the things that I really loved about the movie. Now let's get into the critiques, of which there are several. Like I said, I'm not telling you that you can't enjoy this movie. Absolutely, we're allowed to enjoy these things. But especially as an entertainer, as an actress, unless we offer up these critiques and let these writers know what they're doing, either consciously or unconsciously, unless we put that pressure, things are not going to get better. And obviously, we want things to get better. We want to be portrayed in a better way. And so, obviously, the big concern here when the very first trailer for Soul came out was, Jamie Foxx's character, Joe Gardner, was portrayed as this cute little blue soul, which is cool. But there's this trope, not lately, but there's always been this trope of animators not animating black people as black people throughout the entire movie. You can see this with was it Spies in Disguise, I think, which I believe was a DreamWorks movie with Will Smith, and he was a fucking pigeon the entire time. And then, of course, my very favorite, Princess and the Frog, where Tiana was, a frog for most of the fucking movie. And it kind of that felt like a kind of throwaway movie where Disney was like, okay, motherfuckers, stop complaining, black people. Here's your fucking black princess, and you're gonna take it. Don't care if she's a frog for most of the movie. You take it and you like it, which is really what it felt like. Even when I was watching it when I was very young, that's what it felt like. So I went in and I wanted to see just how long Joe Gardner stayed alive and human in this movie, and I paused it at the moment he died, and it was about 9 minutes. He was human for about 9 minutes before he died, and I was like, oh great, that's fucking fantastic. Probably around the same amount of time that Tiana stayed human, maybe a little more, honestly, I'm not really sure. But yeah, so 9 minutes and he died. Now, I don't know if Disney used the critiques that they had been hearing to switch kind of how the story went, but Joe Gardner did come back to life very soon after he died. But here's the thing. Before he comes back as a soul, he gets assigned as a mentor to this other soul, 22, that basically is like this problem child, and nobody has been able to tame her. Nobody's been able to help her find her spark, which is her passion. It's like the last piece that you need before you're able to go down to earth and be a person and not just a soul. So he's assigned to mentor her. And when he escapes and tries to go back to his body, she comes with him, not that he wants her to, and they do come back to Earth, but she inhabits his body, and he gets thrown into the body of a fucking cat. Oh, by the way, this Soul 22 is voiced by Tina Fey, a white woman. So Tina Fey is in Joe Gardner's body, and Joe Gardner, or Jamie Foxx, is a cat, basically, which is I'm sorry, the same fucking thing. He was a soul and then he was a goddamn fucking cat, which again plays on the trope of not being able for some reason to have a black person play a black person and just be fully black for the entire movie. It's just another way to make it palatable, in the way that, you know, animating him as a very cute little blue ghost soul thing makes it more palatable for audience or white audiences. So it's pretty much the same thing as having Tina Fey's character take over his fucking body. Now, like I said, no hate to Tina Fey at all. I love Tina Fey so much. Like, as a comedian, like, she is such a huge inspiration for me, and her sense of humor is like totally mine. I love Tina Fey so much. But it's still complete bullshit that in order for Joe to be Joe in this world, he had to be basically possessed by a white woman. And some people might rebut, like, well, not really, because it's an anthropomorphic, like, you know, gender neutral soul or whatever. And so you can't really say that no. We're not stupid. We know it's Tina Fey. We know what Tina Fey looks and sounds like, and we know that Tina Fey is a white woman. And so there was that. And so she's experiencing life for a day in his body while they're trying to figure out how to switch back. And again, you know, and this doesn't end up being a white savior movie per se, but it is another example of how black characters in movies are used to advance the character development of a white person, and that's basically their main purpose. Even though Tina Fey's character isn't even the main fucking, you know, character in this movie, eventually it ends up just being him helping her find her way, which is the magical Negro trope. It seemed like it was not going to be, and for most of the movie it really wasn't, because both of them were trying to find their way. But at the end, it did become a magical Negro thing, because he basically gives up his life for her so that she can go down to earth and she can have a life of her own and everything. And which is, like I said, problematic, because it seems like in these movies, we black people are always the ones that have to sacrifice for the sake of the plot development for the white character. And we've seen, of course, we see this a lot. One of the most recent examples was in Game of Thrones, when Daenerys' handmaiden was like beheaded in front of her, like near the end of the season, and you know her handmaiden was black, and of course she got really angry or whatever. But it was basically used to, you know, forward the plot for Daenerys, and so. And yes, Joe did get a second chance at life at the end. And I was telling my husband, I'm like, they really would have fucked up if they did not let Joe, you know, live at the end of this movie. But the way the plot had been going so far, it was really damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because the reason he was given a second chance is because these ethereal beings, the Jerrys, I guess, the Jerrys were like so inspired by what he did for this fucking white woman that they were like, you deserve a second chance at life. And so he was like he was ready to go. He was ready to go to the great beyond and basically like pass on. But they stop him and they're like, no, we are going to give you a second chance, which is super cool, except that it insinuates that in order for him to deserve that second chance, he basically had to, again, sacrifice himself to forward the development and the character development of this white woman. And that's what made him deserving of this second chance at life. And so either way, the way the movie had been built up to that point was fucking problematic. But I will admit, though, it would have been worse if he had just fucking died. That would have been awful, but this was still pretty bad. Let's see, what else did we got? There was another trope that I noticed that really bothered me, and it's the strong black woman trope. The strong single mom black woman trope that I really needs to be something completely fucking recycled and thrown away, because it is exhausting. And in this movie, basically, his mom talks about really not supporting his music career because she supported his father's music career. And she mentions that like his father had her, and that's the reason why he was able to go off and be gigging and stuff and, you know, follow his dreams, because she was at home, or she was, you know, she had opened up her own, you know, seamstress operation, and she was the one providing for the family, so he was able to go off and do whatever the fuck he wanted. And she kind of didn't want Joe to be following that same, you know, that same path. She wanted him to have a job with like health insurance and all that, and I completely get that. I completely get the thing about like going for your dreams and like not settling for all these capitalist, you know, standards of success. But at the same time, for this woman, I'm just like, you know, it's a standard trope, not just in film, but also in our community as well, where Black women are expected to provide for the family financially, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and take all of this burden, while the Black men are able to just go off and do whatever the fuck they want and find themselves and have this grand adventure. Well, for some reason, we are never afforded the same luxury or the same you know, that same whimsy to be able to go and find ourselves. No, we have to stay home, and we have to make sure that everything is taken care of. All that responsibility falls on us. And then culturally within our community, not only do we do that, but then we very often get shit on by Black men, told that we are not attractive, you know, and even the light-skinned Black women like myself are either fetishized and desired more. But then also, if we dare, like, you know, have an opinion or are strong-willed, then we are uppity. It's very much a behavior left over from plantation psychology that for some reason we will not let go of. But this is a burden that is piled onto Black women all the time. And so honestly, in this movie, I don't fucking blame Joe's mom, because there's no reason why she would have had to carry the entire fucking family on her back by herself just to let the men go off and do whatever the fuck they want. And yes, eventually at the end, she ends up being very supportive of Joe and him wanting to pursue his dreams, but at the same time, it's like she's still the one that's just there. She's still the one that's literally just there to be his emotional support. And honestly, in real life, IRL, we're fucking sick of that shit. Like, we are fucking sick of having the world expected of us and getting absolutely nothing in return. Very little gratitude, and sometimes a great deal of abuse. I think it was a big trigger for me, because the way that she talked about Joe's dad and some of the ways that Joe reacted reminded me of my own Black ain't shit father, who did the same exact thing, followed the same exact trope, and very much blamed the Black women or the women in general in his life for him not being able to achieve XYZ, and for putting all of that emotional baggage on us, myself included, eventually as I got older, but even when I was younger, when I was small. So that's a trope that we are really fucking tired of seeing. Like, we don't need more Black single mom stories, and we especially don't need more Black single mothers who literally put everything on their backs so that Black men can go fucking find themselves and do whatever they want, while we stay home underappreciated, overworked, a little depressed, and just tired, and then portrayed as bitter. Of course we're gonna be bitter if we have to do all of this all the time. And Joe's mom was definitely portrayed as bitter, and you know what? I don't fucking blame her. I don't fucking blame her, because I would be the same way. And so that's a trope that we really need to stop putting Black women into. I know Daveed Diggs and Questlove were cultural consultants on this movie, but with all due respect, they are Black men. I wonder if there were any Black women consultants on this movie, because this is definitely a trope that is just expected of Black women, not only in cinema, but also in real life. And I wonder if there was a Black woman consultant on this team to kind of steer them away, or try to steer them away from that trope. Either way, I think they probably needed a little more steering away. I think they very much, they really could have depicted her in a different way. She could have been so much more whimsical. She could have been a cool, like quirky black mom. Like, we get to have quirky white moms and shit. Like, why can't we have a quirky black mom with a weird fucking, you know, hobby or something? You know, like, why not? Why not? But for some reason, this is something that we keep falling into for some reason. And so, like I said, something that we need to step away from, and something that didn't really, like, it didn't really hit me as, like, savory. And then my last big point, honestly, is that, you know, Tina Fey's soul or whatever character spent one day in Joe Gardner's body, one day in New York City as a black man, basically, and was like, oh my God, life is so amazing. Like, these little, you know, these little joys of life, like, this makes me want to live life, which is all well and good. And I understand that this is a Pixar movie, it's a kid's movie, and so we don't really have the time for 22 to spend more than a day in a black man's body, maybe a week, maybe even a month, or maybe there would have been time, but then it probably would have made the movie a little darker. But I think that realistically, if 22 spent a little more time in Joe Gardner's body, who is a black man, there's a lot of shit that sucks about being black in reality. And so if she was given a little more time, I guarantee you that her outlook on what life really is definitely would have been a little different. And so I think that whole thing was shot through some very rose-colored glasses and could be a little tone deaf, because it's like, it's definitely not all like roses and shit to live in that particular body. But that's not something that was delved into. I didn't really expect it to be, because it's, like I said, it's a Pixar movie, it's a kids movie, but still, it's something that was just like, like I said, I wish if I had not been watching this movie through the lens that I was, I think I would have been very emotional about it, because I did have a really great point to it, and I got a little choked up a bit. But in the year 2020, especially after everything that we've been through, especially after some of the stuff that I'm going through psychologically, I had to look at it in a very cynical way, and I had to be very judgmental. And I think that we do have to, because we've been shortchanged for long enough. And whether they like it or not, we need to offer up these critiques in order for things to get better. So I'll probably watch it again. You know, I think so. I very much liked it, but there's definitely some things that could have made it better, or just some tropes that we just need to remove from movies in general. I put it in the same league as Coco, because Coco made me cry so hard. But again, Coco was another example of, like, for some reason, you know, only, you know, most of the movie taking place in the afterlife or some ethereal plane, which I get it. It makes for great animation, but, you know, the Hispanic people in Coco were animated as skeletons, so not full human. Miguel included. Miguel was really the only one. And in Soul, like, you know, yes, we had a multitude of black people represented in this movie, and it was very beautiful, and I loved that. But Joe Gardner, the protagonist, the black protagonist, was not granted the respect of being portrayed as black for the entire time. As a matter of fact, he was portrayed as two non-human entities, more than he was portrayed as an actual black man. And that is very problematic. Maybe a little more than Coco, I don't know. And so, like, if I were looking at it as a movie in general, and because of the message and how profound it is and how timely it was, and honestly, I think it is a good message, I'd give it a 4.5, honestly. But if we're looking at all of these tropes and everything that I couldn't help but see because of the state of mind that I'm in and because of the year that we're in, I would have to give it like a 3. And I know that's a really, I mean, I don't usually give movie's 2 ratings, but I felt like this was really necessary in this instance, because like I said, I'm not saying that it's not an enjoyable movie. I'm not saying that it's not a work of art, because it really is. It is really beautiful. But at the same time, it was riddled with tropes that writers fall into when depicting people of color, when depicting Black people in general. And we're still facing, even with this masterful film, we are still facing this trope of not allowing Black people to be animated solely as Black people throughout the entire movie, probably for the effect of making us more palatable to the white audiences that they cater to, because we know, whether you have studied unconscious bias or not, that the image of Black people makes people very uncomfortable for some reason. Maybe because we've been conditioned to see Black people that way for years and years and years. And so because of that, we have these tropes that are meant to make us more palatable and cuter and non-threatening, and we need to stop. Animators, not moviegoers, but movie makers need to fucking stop that. Like I said, I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, and I don't know, or they're doing it consciously. If they're consciously saying, like, let's do this so that this Black character will be more palatable for our white audience, who are the ones that we actually fucking care about, and not anybody else. I don't know if they're doing that on purpose, or they could be doing it unconsciously. It could be an unconscious trope that they fall into because of unconscious bias. But like I said, even for good movies like this, good Pixar, Disney movies like this, we need to nitpick, and we need to give these critiques so that movie by movie, the creators will think about this and maybe try to step away from these harmful tropes that keep us seeing ourselves in this light, in these weird, like, kind of degrading lights. But like I said, that's my entire thoughts on the movie. But like I said, the message is fantastic. I'm glad Joe Gardner at the end was like, yeah, life is kind of beautiful, and I'm gonna live it to the fullest, and I don't need to be exceptional. I don't need to be this exceptional Negro in order to deserve to live. Nobody has to be exceptional in order to deserve to live, but I think it would be very, very timely for Black people at this point, honestly. And so I'll leave you with that positive note after everything that I've already said. I think you get the gist of it. But that's my review of Soul. It's available on Disney Plus. A lot of people are like, I don't know if I want to watch it now. And I'm like, no, I think you should watch it. First of all, to please support all of the Black actors that are in there. Because like, that stands, like, we still need to support our Black actors and our Black artists and everything. So I say, yes, please do watch it, because honestly, it's a visual journey and it's really, really cool. But also, keeping in mind these things that I'm noticing, and that's completely okay. You can enjoy it. It's completely okay to enjoy something and critique it at the same time. And that's kind of where I am with this movie. So like I said, go watch it. It's on Disney Plus. Formulate your own opinion. Maybe yours will be different from mine, and that's completely okay. And maybe you'll catch more things that I didn't even catch. So check it out. Go check it out. But that's my review of Soul. I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it's a little long, but I had a lot to say. Please follow me on my other social media like Instagram and TikTok, and consider becoming a Patreon or joining OnlyFans as well, to support me as a content creator and an artist. So that's about it today. Guys, take care, and I'll see you next time at the next video or movie review, whatever I decide to do. Probably Wonder Woman 1984. All right, thank you so much, guys. Bye.